What the hell is going on?
I have a very, very warm and like a warming tale. I know it's a sea of bad news out there, but a very, very good tale. But first, the weather. Parts of Britain face up to 15 centimetres of snow this weekend.
Oh, no.
And you double centimetres and add 32 to get feet. So 15 times 2 is 40, and 40 plus 32 is 40. It's about 65? 65 feet of snow this weekend. Can you believe that?
No.
Some areas could be lashed by 65-mile-an-hour winds, and there may be black ice as well. So the advice to drivers is to speed up and tailgate and undertake and flash your lights and lean on your horn, especially if you're driving a hatchback.
Correct.
What's wrong with those people? Scotland is going to be covered with a fresh layer of snow and ice. Northern Ireland, Wales and southwestern England will face strong winds over the next couple of days after the Met Office issued a further weather warning.
Warning! Warning!
2 warnings to be precise. Meanwhile, in the southeast of England, it will be calmer and relatively mild. Monday, mostly dry and bright and chilly. Tuesday, cold and blustery wintry showers. Wednesday, sunny spells and wintry showers. Now, do you want the long-range weather forecast?
Negative.
The Met Office say until the 9th of February, frost, cloud, rain, sleet and snow, followed by rain and snow, followed by further spells of rain, sleet and snow, and showery interludes and windy. For the rest of February, cold or very cold, an enhanced risk of snow and severe frosts. It'll be like winter out there. Now, do you want the warming tale now or later? Later? OK. Here's where we are. Mrs M is facing a fresh cabinet revolt after Chancellor Phil refused to rule out quitting if there is a no-deal Brexit. Does this sound a little bit like a soap opera?
Yes.
Is anybody dead yet?
No.
Well, that's not exactly true. Are any sisters sleeping unbeknownst to them with their brothers? Perhaps. Theresa May and Philip Hammond are at loggerheads. He's not gone yet, but he's put his hat and coat on and he's checking his watch to see if he can make the last bus. The Chancellor warned of huge economic damage from crashing out with a no deal. Or, as I was corrected last weekend, saying crashing out without a deal, instead of crashing out without a deal, I should say, because I was accused of personally ruining our chances of making a success of Brexit. Instead of crashing out without a deal, I should say sailing out on a rainbow cloud of perfume without a deal. Is that better? Philip Hammond said that some of his colleagues viewed next week's Commons votes that could pave a way for a Brexit delay as high noon. Meanwhile, Theresa May is trying to win over the DUP. Well, she ain't going to do it in those shoes. Not in those shoes, Mrs M. I'm pretty sure that tiger print kitten heels are among the many things that the DUP disapprove of.
Disgusting.
You're going to have to wear something much more demure than that. I mean, you showing up in those shoes, they can't think of anything else. Think, what would Jesus wear? Meanwhile, Amber Rudd, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, might back an amendment to extend Article 50 beyond March. We might stay in the EU beyond March.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, we're obviously not ready. Let's take a breath. See if we can get this right. Let's just check what's over the fence before we leap over it. Does that make sense? And the answer is, of course,
No.
That seems to be what makes sense for the fundamentalist Brexiteer ultras who don't appear to care what happens as long as they get their way. Which, unless they are as rich as the people pushing the hardest Brexit, might not be as comfortable a landing as they think. Meanwhile, Aid Secretary Penny Mordaunt insisted that public opinion was moving towards support for a no-deal departure. Oh, really? Really? Is that what you think, Penny? You're insisting that, are you? Based on what? Information? She told the Financial Times that Brexit looked a bit grim at the moment, but she believed that the nation would eventually look back with pride. That's what we always do. moan about the present while looking back with pride. Oh, come off it. The map was once pink, and we taught the world that they were doing it all wrong and barged into their countries and made them play cricket, and we nicked all their best stuff and put it in the British Museum, and they thanked us for setting them straight. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Is it time to bring you the good news yet?
No.
No, OK. Well, let's do Emmanuel Macron. Oui ou non? Furious Brexiteers turned on Emmanuel Macron after he said that Brexit had torn society apart. Well, two things. First, Brexiteers seem to be permanently furious. It's practically what defines them. And second, he's completely correct in every respect. How can anybody say otherwise? It has torn society apart. And I was mentioning this last night. I think there's a lot of us that are actually enjoying this, enjoying the shouting, enjoying the fury, enjoying the purple-faced, spittle-flecked rage. We love a bit of it. It's great to just go splenetic every now and again. Otherwise, you'll bottle it all up and you'll get a growth on your brain. MPs pointed out that the referendum was a democratic decision and pointed at what was going on in France, as though that's the only alternative. The referendum was a democratic decision, they said, and unlike France, the UK's not suffering any rioting on the streets, which is the political equivalent of saying no, 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 which is about the level we're at the moment. Embarrassing?
Yes.
And about that, rioting on the streets. Not yet. We haven't got rioting on the streets here, but we're constantly being promised that, or threatened with it. How many times have you heard some right-wing politician or pundit or newspaper columnist say that there's going to be riots if they don't get the Brexit they'd hoped for? I've lost count of the amount of times I've read that. I mean, just in the past few weeks there's been the Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. You remember the Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, don't you? No! Yes, that's him. He said Parliament risks causing real social instability, like the scenes with the Yellow Vest protesters in France, if Brexit is not delivered. Which sounds like riots on the streets to me. Even our own Uncle Nige said that there would be political anger, the likes of which none of us in our lifetimes have ever witnessed, if voters are going to feel cheated over the result of the referendum to leave the EU. Sounds like a prophecy of riots to me.
I'm a nutcase.
Meanwhile, back in France, Emmanuel Macron said the result of the national vote that we had in June 2016 showed how the public could be manipulated. He said, be aware of people who sell you dreams, that tell you your anger can be solved by a referendum. I'm scared of people who manipulate you with miracle ideas, he said. Spot on, monsieur. I mean, pick a hole in any of that. Apart from, oh, you got riots in your streets. I despair. What's this? This text says, why is it that when the roars are photographed, they always look as though they're about to pass... That's just rude. Pass solids? Can you say that?
No.
I don't think so. What's that got to do with what I'm talking about? Gaz says, did you know that Orkney in Scotland is the happiest place to live, is the most happiest, he says. Not just the happiest, but is the most happiest place to live in the UK. I don't get it, as it rains all the time. Strange but true. I've never heard such a lot of old rubbish in my life. Orkney in Scotland is the happiest place to live in the UK. Who thought that up? What rubbish? Any fool know it's Tower Hamlets.
Affirmative.
I'd rather live in Tower Hamlets than blooming Orkney. What's there to do there? Absolutely nothing. Herd sheep. And nothing else. But anyway, what was I? There's people interrupting me all the time. Oh yeah. I was talking about France, wasn't I? Emmanuel Macron sticking his oar in. Why doesn't he go back to where he came from? Oh, he is there. He said, beware of people who sell you dreams, that tell you that your anger can be solved by a referendum. I'm scared of people who manipulate you with miracle ideas, he said. Correct. Amundo, as they say in France. And he attacked the Brexit poster campaigns that in 2016 promised more money for the NHS. Oh, by the way, I didn't watch it at the time because I thought, oh, God, it'd be like work watching that Brexit drama that was on TV. It was absolutely excellent. I watched it the other night. I thought, oh, I'll just try it for 5 minutes, see if it depresses me. But it was really, really good. And really, really terrifying. Boy, have we ever been sold down a river. By people who don't even live here, for crying out loud. Anyway, here's another bloke who doesn't live here. Monsieur Macron, the leader of France, he was attacking the Brexit poster campaigns, which promised more money for the NHS. More money for the NHS, they said. Liar! And other good causes. And plenty else besides. He says there were lots of buses by reading... there were lots of buses passing by reading... What? Well, he said it in French. His English isn't good. He says there were lots of buses passing by reading that you were going to save something like £36 billion if you get out of Europe. And it will be done in 15 days. And then the people voted. And there were people who voted for Brexit, who did it in good faith. They were angry. And they thought their situation was impossible because the system was unjust. And the result is those who promised a Brexit literally left within 2 weeks. Yeah, he did. Yes, he did. Left within 2 weeks. He says they didn't even want to govern. I think he's talking about you, Dave.
I think this is nonsense.
Dave's in the shed where they keep the other tools. Macron said people are starting to realise that all the figures they were giving were entirely false. And what they were told could be done overnight, in fact, cannot be delivered. How many times have we heard that? Oh, it's going to be the easiest negotiations in history. Be a piece of cake. Be able to do it in my sleep, said David Davis, who promptly then went to sleep. How's it going so far, by the way?
Oh, fabulous.
That's what I thought. And Macron said, and in the end, it's going to cost them, as in us. Or us, as I'm supposed. I just can't get my head around us. Us, it just sounds so sibilant and fey. Us. I'm sticking with us. I don't care if it does make me sound stupid. Anyway, he said, and in the end, it's going to cost them, as in us. In this context, do you think the referendum was a good thing? He asks. No, he answers. He's doing that thing where he asks the question, he poses the query, and then answers it himself. Do you think the referendum was a good thing? He says, no, because it didn't allow for an informed, transparent and calm debate. Are we calm?
No.
Not really, no. Not really, no. And he said it's torn society apart, and it's left it open to disinformation coming from abroad, or terrible manipulation, and all of that seems indisputable. But that didn't stop the usual suspects from disputing it. And I'll get to that in just a minute. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday and Saturday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC.
When I was 16, school...
Everything is going extremely well.
You bet your life it is. This text says, I had a dream last night that Jacob Rees-Mogg was the Mad Hatter, Boris was the Cheshire Cat, and Bridgen and Francois were Tweedledum and Tweedledee. No more Brexit cheese for me before bedtime. I had a dream that Mrs. M picked up Jacob Rees-Mogg by the feet, stuck his head in an olive, and used him as a swizzle stick. This tweet says, you, Macron, Blair, Osborne, all on the same elitist, corporatist song sheet. I bet this show's coming from Davos. I think you missed out James O'Brien. There is, to be fair, there is a gap after you. There's a space there which shouldn't be there. So maybe that space is just, it's the James O'Brien, the me and James O'Brien. The James O'Brien bit is red. It's assumed. Here's call in Kilmarnock. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm great, mate. How are you?
Oh, fine. Wet again.
Wet again, did you say?
It's raining again.
Oh, well, that's what you get for living in Kilmarnock.
Still, they're telling us we're going to have snow on Tuesday, so...
Well, I can check while you wait. Would you like me to check?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, I've got the weather for Glasgow. Does that help?
Yes.
Raining tonight and sunny tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Sunny tomorrow, Mary. What are you going to wear?
Well, still the big woolly jumper.
Yeah. You got nothing for a sun, I understand that. Cloudy on Monday and raining on Tuesday, and cloudy on Wednesday and raining on Thursday, and cloudy on Friday, and cloudy on Saturday, and cloudy on Sunday, and raining on Monday, and cloudy on Tuesday, and raining on Wednesday, and cloudy on Thursday, and cloudy on Friday. And that's into the first week of February. So if you don't like the sun, then you're in luck.
This is why when we get the sun, we're so surprised by
Yeah,
it.
stunned.
You were talking about Orkney being the best place to live.
Well, that's what I'm told.
It's absolutely wonderful up there.
But what do you do?
Well, you join in with the community. I've got friends who live up there, and they always tell me about what events they're going to, which seem they have much
Sheep shearing, I would imagine.
no, many more. And the beaches are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I would imagine about 3-4 seconds you'd be frozen solid.
Well, the thing is, it does get chilly, but I think the one downside to the weather up there is the wind.
Is the weather?
No, the wind.
Yeah, the weather. The downside of the weather up there is mostly the weather.
Yeah.
I've been to the very, very north of Scotland. The beaches up there are among the best-looking beaches I've ever seen in my life. No one on them, as in at all. In August, not a soul.
That's right. Years ago, we sold a puppy up to Orkney, and my husband took it up.
Yeah. What kind of puppy was it?
A Doberman puppy.
Oh, a Doberman. Okay, that's sort of a proper dog. Yes.
And he couldn't stop talking about it.
What, the Doberman?
One of the small islands off the main island.
Oh.
And but these our friends, they've actually moved on to what they call the main island. But we've even got friends who moved up from Manchester up there.
Why? What for?
Well, I think it was is that
They were on the run.
But this is one of the joys of up there as well, is that there's very little crime.
I'm not sure about that.
Oh yeah, and
I heard that some people are so inbred up there that they are their own fathers. Is that true?
Well, it happens in other areas in Scotland as well. But I thought it was quite amusing when you said that Tower Hamlets was the best place.
It's lovely there. Mm-hmm.
Because actually, East Ayrshire Council beat Tower Hamlets Council for the best council in the UK.
Well, I can't comment on that. It seems a bit weird, but okay then. All right, nice talking to you, Mary Hen.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye. 0345 6060 973. Why is it... Okay, this tweet is in massive type. Does that indicate shouting?
No, that came through on an email. I don't know why it's gone through that.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll get a woman in. We'll see if we can sort that out. And if a woman is not available, then I suppose we'll have to get a man in. Much use they are. Frank says Orkney is the happiest, apparently. I saw that news item. We discussed and went, nah. The kids might be clever and the scenery beautiful and the air fresh and everybody has jobs, but the young kids always leave for the mainland. Well, I would think so. Anywhere else would be a good idea if you're, below the age of death. This tweet says, just been on the right move, looking for houses in Orkney. There's no taste in internal furnishings. It's like it's like Telford, circa 1975. I would expect so. Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of fixer-uppers up there. And what's this? I recognise a lot of names here, so I'll tread carefully. Oh, which mouses am I using here? I've got a multiplicity of the mouses. I've asked this before. Is a plural for a computer mouse mice? Because that just doesn't sound right. Is it computer mice? That just sounds wrong, doesn't it? But mouses also sounds a bit odd. Someone will know. Ben says if there was a second vote, it should be about who is the best LBC DJ. DJ? Ain't no DJs here. Well, unless we have... how about... do we have any Joe Walsh back there?
I'll check.
Do we have the smoker you drink, the player you get?
Want to score some pot?
Let's have a couple of tracks off that right now. Apparently not. We haven't got that in our collection at LBC. I'm stunned. How about some Niels Fram? Do we have any Niels Fram?
Groovy.
No, apparently not either. Pharaoh Sanders?
Yowza.
Nothing. What kind of a record collection have we got here at LBC? Very disappointed. Anyway, it says if there was a second vote, it should be about who's the best LBC DJ. Hey! My top two are Nick Abbot and Dave O'Brien. I'm not sure about Dave O'Brien. I don't think he's got it, to be frank. And I'll tell Dave that when I see him next. And Steve Allen is in joint second. Oh, Steve will be delighted. Pass that message on. Simon in Windsor says, as a so-called Ramona, I may agree with what Macron said. His comments are a bit rich, bearing in mind the weekly protests that are tearing France apart. It's not tearing France apart, it's just a few disgruntled people in the middle of Paris, that's all, who don't want to pay any tax. Doesn't he understand, says Simon, it will only make the swivel-eyed loons' apocalyptic views even more entrenched. Couldn't happen, Simon. You can't get more entrenched than that. If they dug their trenches deeper than that, they'd emerge in China. This is about the comments that Emmanuel Macron made. Patrick says, Zut alors, Macron shouts at us from France and no one here has a clue what it means. For a time I worked there, and I can tell you that most French people don't know either. My dear old dad always said France is the most beautiful country on earth. The French don't deserve it. Well, this is the story about Emmanuel Macron telling us truths that many people don't want to hear. That Brexit has torn society apart, that we were all sold lies, and the whole thing is really a sham that's going to cause our imminent ruination. And it seems indisputable to me, but that, like I said before, doesn't stop people disputing it. Like Tory MP Nadine Dorris, who said, I think Macron should apologise. Well, honestly, Nadine, what on earth is the point of saying that? You think he's actually going to do it? She said, he should be looking to his own problems. Well, you know what? To a large extent, we are his problems. We've given the EU a massive headache and a huge expense and uncertainty about what the future holds. Saying he should be looking at his own troubles is like digging a hole in a boat that we're all on and then telling those that complain that we're sinking that our actions are none of their business. But Nadine wasn't alone. Conservative Peter Bone said, the first thing the President ought to consider is this was a democratic decision reached by the British people, which, as we know, was based on a lot of lies and misinformation paid for by shady Americans and interfered with by even shadier Russians, and using millions of highly targeted adverts playing on people's prejudices to get them to do what the billionaires behind it all wanted them to do. If that's democracy in action, I'm an ice cream milkshake. Macron said Britain leaving the EU without a deal will be a disaster for everyone, and especially the British. And how could anybody disagree with that? He believes that we're going to ask for more time to negotiate a new trade deal. And speaking more widely about the issue of referendums, he said that they're a poor form of democracy. Well, you got that right. A terrible form of democracy. The worst. He said they could be manipulated by fake news and that parliamentary government should be respected at all times. R-E-S-C-P-E-T. Like Aretha Franklin used to sing. R-E-C-P-E-C-T. We have been duped by foreign actors with unlimited funds to get their way, persuaded that the reason for our personal failings or lack of success has nothing to do with ourselves or luck. It's all to do with foreigners, and this sense that we're not in control of our destiny. But that's not going to be solved by leaving the EU. I mean, those running the country, this country, won't suddenly change their policies to benefit the poor. What on earth in recent history would lead you to believe that? The poor will continue to be poor, or poorer, and the rich will continue to be rich, or, more likely, richer. How can anyone doubt that? But they do. I'll get back to this in a minute. And there's also that really heartwarming positive story. Don't let me forget to tell you that, because it will warm the cockles. 0345 6060 973. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's 10:30. The news headlines with Andy Ivey.
Brazil's president has flown over the site of a dam collapse.
Here are the studio calls flashing up on the indicator.
Yes, Chiswick first. Hello, Milan.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. I was going to talk about no deal and how what actually a no deal actually means.
Yes.
So it means potential restrictions on goods going to the EU, tariffs.
No, Project Fear. Project Fear.
No passporting rights, no benefit from the EU's 700 or so agreement. I mean, it's not just magicking out there. It's like you just have to look at three docs, understand how the single market works, understand WTO, and subsection 3 of Article 50. But can I say something controversial?
Oh, my God. Oh, no. Controversial. Grip onto something firm, everybody.
If you ever want to know how clueless, utterly clueless some leaders are, just tune in to Question Time. And it is painful. You end up pulling your hair out. The amount of nonsense on there is just astonishing. And you think 2 years later, people still haven't understood the facts, and they're still harping on about rubbish.
Milan, you forget what I do for a living. I get shouted at by those people for a living.
Yeah.
Stick around. For the next 2.5 hours, people will be screaming at me down the phone that I got it all wrong.
Yeah, and then they'll say Project Fear. And if you come with them with facts, they'll say Project Fear. Then,
no one's interested in facts anymore. Everybody gets to have their own facts now. It's true.
Then, it's really annoying. Then you get people like Peter Bone and Nadine Dorris and Jenkins going on there telling lies. I mean, Nadine Dorris was the one who was upset with Theresa May because we're leaving the EU and we won't have any MEPs in Europe.
What?
Yeah, she was really annoyed with Theresa May because once we leave the EU, we won't have any MEPs in Europe. But that's the whole point of leaving the EU. She didn't quite understand, and she doesn't understand what a customs union is.
I'm almost coming around to the opinion that the people that are running this country have no idea what they're doing. They don't appear to be very good at their jobs.
Because facts and details, it's too boring. Because if you have a charismatic leaver who chest beats nonsense, and then you have a Remainer who comes out with boring facts and details, generally people may gravitate to the charismatic person.
Yes, well, Aaron Banks actually said this out loud. I think it was Aaron Banks. It was either him or the fellow who was sitting next to him when they were being quizzed by one of those select committees. Just before they rose to go for lunch. Yeah. They said, right, that's it, we're leaving. He said, I think it was him or one of his acolytes, said they don't bother people with facts because it's all white noise to them. He said, just get a simple message and just keep saying it over and over and over again. Got to take back control. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's completely meaningless. And I was banging on last night about the royal family. The very same people who would defend the Queen to the hilt and her position over us would tell me that they want to leave the EU to take back control because it's an unelected, evil superstate, and then defend an unelected head of state. But I don't want to go on about the Queen again this evening. I did her to death last night.
That was funny. I was listening to her last night. But then, and they'll harp her back saying, 17.4 million. It was a democratic vote. And I was like, but that was 3 years ago. Article 50, subsection 2, is where facts and details matter, and that's where levers are collapsing, because you can't, you get exposed all the time. You can't come out with lies.
I just fundamentally disagree that it was a free and fair democratic vote. I think that we were conned and we were manipulated almost as though we were hypnotised. It was nothing free and fair and democratic about it. A billionaire from America was the architect of what it is that we're going through here, with other billionaires alongside, none of whom actually either live here, or the ones that do have decided to go and live somewhere else. While it's like they've jumped ship and are still insisting on dictating the direction of the ship they've just left.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of America, just a slight segue. Did you hear about Roger Stone?
Yes, I might come on to him in a little bit. But boy, is there anybody that I can think of more deserving of time in jail?
Can I tell you one thing about him that was amazing? Well, a couple of things. One, he's got a tattoo of Richard
Nixon on his back. Yeah.
And in the late 70s, him and Manafort were the premier prestigious lobbyists, like shady as anything. And then when Trump came in 2015, he said, "Right, I'm going to drain the swamp, call a time on lobbyists." And what did he do the next minute? He hired Manafort and Roger Stone.
And half of Goldman Sachs, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's if you can watch the documentary called "Get Me Roger Stone," that is amazing. That'll tell you a lot about him.
Right. Well, it sounds like you've just given me homework. Oh, but sir, it's the weekend.
And you can watch that and listen to Megadeth as well.
All right, that sounds like a great idea. Is it like the Dark Side of the Moon and the Wizard of Oz? If you put on Megadeth and the Roger Stone thing, does it sync perfectly? All right, thanks a lot, Milan. 0345 6060 973.
Rock and roll!
I've never actually done that, but I keep hearing it over and over again. You start Dark Side of the Moon and the Wizard of Oz, and it syncs up perfectly. Groovy. It sounds like ruining two things in one go to me, but, whatever floats your boat.
Yowza.
Josh says, if Cameron had just told Farage to shut up and go away, like that Tory MP did to the Russians after the Salisbury Novichok attack, we wouldn't be in this mess now. That Tory MP. You're talking about Gavin Williamson, the very manly and scary Defence Secretary, who said to the Russians they should shut up and go away. We've got those F-35 planes coming in. Oh, they're lovely, they are. You should see the look on Vladimir Putin's face when he hears that we've got those planes. Oh, they're just fabulous. Gareth says, don't worry about Macron, he's only a caretaker manager, or, in cricket terms, a night watchman. I've got no idea what that means. That's the cricket term, a night watchman, for a caretaker manager? What really irks me about doing the crosswords is how many cricketing terms are peppered through it. Very, very annoying. I don't know anything about cricket. Stop asking me to know about cricket doing a blooming crossword. I'm pointing at you, the Daily Telegraph. I mean, it's my favourite part, was the only part that I particularly like of the newspaper. Unless they're advertising with us, in which case it's a superb publication from cover to cover. Anyway, Gareth says, don't worry about Macron, he's only a caretaker manager. He'll be bowled out middle stump before the gunpowder plot. Well, I don't know what that means, but it sounds incredibly painful. Is that allowed in cricket?
No.
And John in Greenwich says, can Scotland please break away from the UK, stay in the EU, and then I can move up there and live happily ever after? 0345 6060 973. Well, you can go over to Ireland, live happily ever after over there. If you have Irish ancestry, John. But do you have Scottish ancestry? I could go live in Scotland any time I like. I'm half Welsh, half Scottish, born in England. Don't get more British than that. I should be the Queen of England. Archway, hello, Mark.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
All right, thanks.
I just wanted to... I can't believe you don't like cricket, but I don't want to dwell on that.
So boring. How can anybody like that sport? How can anybody like a sport that goes on for 5 days and still nobody might win?
Well, you just spend the whole day drinking, mostly.
Well, yeah, but you can do that without the impediment of cricket.
Well, yeah, okay.
Just cut out the sport part and get straight to the drinking, Mark.
That is true.
Yeah.
I called you to mention...
But before we go on, Mark, are we on speakerphone?
No.
Okay, then.
Sorry, I'm in my kitchen. It could be a bit echoey. Is
Yes.
that a little bit better?
A little bit, yes.
A little bit. Sorry, yeah, my kitchen's a little bit echoey.
Well, get you with your fancy, huge, echoey kitchen.
No, it's just no carpet. I can't afford it.
All right, then.
I called to say about, I don't know if you saw these two, mentioned in the news. The MP for Shrewsbury apparently wrote to the Polish Prime Minister respectfully requesting that he veto any attempt by the UK to extend Article 50.
Really?
Yes, so I read, and it gets better. I don't know what day it was, but I read about this as well, that John Humphreys was carrying an interview with the Irish European minister, and he said that the answer to the Irish border is for Ireland to also leave the European Union.
Yeah. Jump onto our dinghy.
Yes, go onto our burning ship. It's working so well for us.
Yeah, well, so far, yeah. Tremendous.
And I just thought I wanted to bring those to your attention.
Well, did she back that, or bat that straight back at him?
Believe it or not, yes. I think she said that the approval rating for Ireland being in the EU at the moment is running at 96%. So,
well, I don't. Is that a majority? I'm not sure. It sounds like a fact that you've just given me there, Mark. So we can just dismiss that out of hand.
Yes, it's probably but obviously they're sort of barreling along, going, well, we're British and therefore we can take everybody else down with us.
Yeah. I think is how you pronounce that. All right, thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. This text says, will you be drinking London Pride now that Fuller's has been sold to the Japanese? Well, it's quite surprising how many beers that you associate with other countries that actually are owned by the Japanese. Who'd have thunk it? Actually, it's a bit dispiriting when you find out how many so-called craft beers are owned by the biggest brewery on the planet. Because, I don't know about you, I can't be the only one that likes to, when I go up to a pub bar, to try something that I haven't seen before. Because there's no end of them now. And you go home, or if you go home and investigate it further, you'll find that all of those tiny, not all of them, but a surprisingly large number of those tiny little breweries that you've come across for the first time walking up to your favourite bar, that look like they're made by hand by two bearded hippies covered in tattoos, are actually made by the same company that makes Budweiser. Not Budweiser, but Budweiser. Which I believe is the king of beers. I'm sure I read that. But if it looks like a craft beer, it might not necessarily be made by artisans. It might be made by one of the biggest companies on the planet. So check before you buy. Or just buy it anyway. I mean, who cares? Just beer, isn't it? 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Let me just take a moment to remind you about my podcast. And I think I told you a lie yesterday. A lie. What? I think I said there was no... Because I was doing a whole... it just turned out to be a whole show about the royal family yesterday. I didn't intend it that way. I didn't intend to speak about the royal family at all, really. Just barely mention them in passing. But that's the way it went. And I said that there's no royal mentions on my podcast. And I don't think that's true. I may have mentioned them once, but I might have got away with it. But there's other stuff on there too, including two... Well, I thought they were hilarious calls of people who were apoplectically furious with me, just beside themselves with anger they were. And on this series of podcasts, I'm going to stick some of my favourite calls at the end of it. And I think it's laugh out loud stuff. But you can find it where they give away podcasts. And specifically on our app, the global app. If you if you point your device in its direction, you can squirt it up it. The global app is available where they give apps away. My podcast is called The Nick Abbot Habit. Ask for it by name.
The Nigel Farage Show, LBC.
I'm one of the...
Do you like me?
Well, like's a strong word. Molly says, when the angry ones who threaten civil unrest say they'll never vote again if Brexit is thwarted, is that just a threat or a delicious promise? And Sandy says, cricket isn't overrated. You are. I wasn't aware that I was rated at all. Sandy says, I always listen to your show and rarely agree with anything you broadcast. Well, that sounds a bit weird, Sandy. Is there something wrong with you? I mean, in your position, I'd probably listen to something else. But, you know, that's just me. You perhaps like torturing yourself. Cheem, hello, Sarah.
Yes, good evening. Hi.
Sarah, please speak directly into the phone.
Hello, can you hear me?
No, not really.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's better.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say, it cannot be
can you back off the phone just a little bit?
Okay, sorry.
Let's strike a happy medium, shall we?
Sorry?
What?
I think there's something wrong with my phone. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm trying to say that it's not democratic, surely, for my neighbour to be able to take away my and my children's rights of freedom of movement.
Who's taking your freedom of movement rights away?
That's why I think we Remainers are just so passionate about Europe and just feel that the freedom of movement is extremely important. I know that Guy Verhofstadt, one of the EU negotiators, certainly is in favour of the possibility of individual European citizenship, membership cards, if you like.
Yeah.
And this certainly, I think, would be a compromise and would perhaps help to repair, if you like, what everyone talks about is the broken society, which I don't think is ever going to mend, personally.
Well, what would be the requirements to receive such a card?
I honestly, at the moment, I don't know. I just know that I've had email exchanges with him, and I know that he's certainly trying to try and find a compromise and help people who certainly feel very strongly about remaining within the EU to see if that it would be a possibility.
It doesn't sound like it's a possibility, because we would have to react in kind, wouldn't we? And we'd have to offer such things to Europeans, and that's, I think, the principal reason why we're leaving is because people didn't want to be surrounded by foreigners.
Well, that's I think that's rather shame and it's a shame and rather narrow-minded. But the other thing that there seems to be very little impact, if you like, or little emphasis by the media on the impact of Brexit on those British people who are actually living and working in EU countries at the moment.
But isn't the assumption that they will be able to continue doing that?
Unfortunately, I think, for instance, I know with Italy, having worked in Italy myself, that they are being asked to apply for residency, to, if you like, to legalise their residency status. And that means that they will be allowed to remain and work within Italy. But many people now, if you like, are peripatetic. They might have a house in Italy or a house in France, but they work across borders.
I wonder how many people that actually...
under threat.
Yeah, well, I wonder how many people that actually that situation encompasses. But it may not be many, but for each of those people, it's their life. So I get it is an issue.
Well, I don't think, for instance, I'm not sure that our system could cope with many people suddenly returning to this country if they feel that they can no longer carry on working where they are in Europe. So I think we haven't actually thought about the impact of, of people having been forced to come back.
Yeah, but it's not the workers that would pose a problem. It's the people who are who have gone past the age of working that would be the problem. We'd be subsumed under a tidal wave of moaning old minis. They don't like this and they don't like that, and the blooming weather's freezing, and they don't make coffee here like they do in France, and all that.
lastly, I just wanted to say that I do think this is an unfair situation. My understanding is that people currently living in Northern Ireland are able to hold to apply for an Irish passport, or they can have a British passport.
Is that a fact?
And I don't know if that's a fact. That's my understanding.
Well, if that's your understanding, Sarah, then it automatically becomes a fact for you.
However, what I'm wondering is, given that the DUP seems so keen to remain, to have ties with our country, perhaps I wonder if that could be extended to us. So maybe another option is that we could also apply for Irish passports, which means that we could retain our EU citizenship rights.
Well, I think people are applying for Irish passports in record numbers by dint of their historic Irish citizenship.
Yes, but sadly, some of us don't have Irish ancestors.
Yeah.
But I know it's a rather desperate plea, but I just feel that you can't have this situation where they can have that, whereas, as I said, my neighbour takes away my right to freedom of movement.
Right. Well, watch this space. Thanks a lot, Sarah. 0345 6060 973. Who knows what might happen next? Isn't it exciting?
No.
Nick says, I was stunned to hear Nick Abbot say that he doesn't like cricket. How's that possible? Listeners with the material. Will says, I predict that 12 months from now, Madame President Macron will advise that we eat cake. I like cake. I do like cake. It's that glorious mixture of sugar and fat. I can feel my bliss points firing just thinking about it. Ian says, how do LBC get away with constant pro-Remain propaganda? N.I. Abbot and Mr. James O.B. have planted callers like Milan to promote their anti-British agenda. Oh, Ian, you've got to be kidding me. Like there aren't enough Brexiteers on the air on this station. I mean, that's the... talk about selective hearing. Are you aware that Nigel Farage is on this radio station? Ian Dale. We got Andrew Pearce. We got Nick. There's so many Brexiteers on this radio station, but obviously not enough, Ian, because enough for you would be 100%. This is what I was talking about yesterday, about the snowflakes. Old right-wing ringers call young left-wingers snowflakes, but it's actually the other way around. If the definition of a snowflake is to have a berserk reaction to anything you don't agree with, it is old right-wing people who are the snowflakes in this country. It is not enough to have 99% output that you agree with. If the 1% is something that you can't agree with, then you just go mad about it. Don't worry, Ian. Nigel Farage will be on shortly, and your safe space will return.
I'm a nutcase.
Pro-Remain propaganda. I'm on twice a week for 3 hours. And it's not pro-Remain propaganda, it's picking holes in the Leavers' arguments, which is like, it's like shooting ducks in a barrel, which is even easier than fish. I haven't got a sound effect for a fish. 0345 6060 973, Nick Abbot, LBC.
The studio calls flashing up on the indicator.
Yes, let's have one in Birkenhead. Hello, Russ.
Evening, Nick. You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, talking about the cricketing terms before.
Oh, yeah. It drives me up the wall. The amount of crosswords that I've been unable to complete because they require a cricketing term. I don't know nothing about cricket or religion, as a matter of fact.
You should develop your interest, Nick. You're the type of person who should be into cricket, in my opinion.
Definitely
but
not.
Anyway...
Well, it's the most boring sport in the world. How can anybody watch that?
No. Come on. 5-day games are 5-day games, but you've also got your 2020 games, which are over in 3.5, 4 hours. Which isn't that long, is it?
3.5 or 4 hours of intense boredom, and then it's over.
Oh, no. Everyone's hitting sixes into the crowd, and there's music playing. And
so there's the chance of concussion as well. Oh, well, you should have mentioned that right at the beginning.
You can win a prize if you catch a ball in the crowd.
How about if you catch it in your face?
Well, yeah, as long as you look what's happening, that won't happen to you.
But how can you pay attention for 4 hours? No one does.
Well, are you not into football as well? Or?
Yes, football's completely different.
Oh, you're Chelsea, aren't you? Sorry, I've just remembered.
No, I don't support any particular team. I just like watching...
Oh, I thought you were a Chelsea fan.
No, okay. I mean,
anyway.
I like certain teams based on the way they play.
Yeah, hopefully you like Liverpool the way they play at the moment.
Absolutely.
Ah, fantastic. But anyway, yeah, I want to go back to the night watchman term. You have no understanding of it. Now,
why is it called a night watchman?
Here we go. I'm just about to tell you.
Right.
Yeah, a night watchman in cricket. This is to do with the longer format, admittedly, the 4 or 5 day games. Where coming towards the end of the day's play, if a batsman gets out and there's only, say, 2 or 3 wickets down, the night watchman... I
have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't know what 2 or 3 wickets
You've lost me already.
Oh, dear. But, okay, it's sending a batsman in who's not as good as the batsman that is due to be in next. Say, one of the bowlers. Normally you've got bowlers and batsmen who do different things. Although you do have all-rounders as well who do both things.
Rounders? I played rounders. Yeah, rounders in school, yeah.
And bat. Yeah, I used to play rounders at school as well, yeah, true. But, yeah, the night watchman is normally a bowler. So he's not so good at batting, really. They send him in.
I thought that cricket was the most boring thing that I'd ever experienced, but somebody explaining cricket to me has just beat that.
Okay, then. You've defeated me. I can't help you any further.
Well, then, you've done your best.
And look it up
I definitely won't be doing that. Thanks a lot, Russ. 0345 6060 973. I love cricket.
Boring!
Couldn't be worse. Peter says, anybody ever considered that maybe riots there may be riots by Remainers if we do get Brexit, bearing in mind the lies told by Leave? Well, that's a switch. Ramona's rioting, what would that look like? People chucking vegetarian nut burgers at each other. Organic falafels flying through the air. Paul says, just out of interest, because you were talking about records a minute ago, what's your favourite song in the UK charts right now? I've got no idea. If my life depended on it, I couldn't tell you what's in the charts right now. Hey, you're a young person. What's in the charts right now?
I have no idea.
See, I've got no clue. What, I sound 12 to you? I've got no idea what's in the charts right now. James, is that song One Kiss? is that in the charts yet? Or still? Is it out? You know, One Kiss by what's his name? Oh, he is great. No idea. James says more rubbish comes out of your mouth than it does out of your backside. I hope you had a nice January. Yes, I did, James. Thanks very much. Lovely to hear from you. Don't be a stranger. Brian says, I was born in Northern Ireland and have both Irish and British passports, but unless you have an ancestral connection, within reason, with Ireland, no way will you get one of their passports, which are really cool. Mine's the size of a credit card. Is it? Because the British one is about the size of a Bible. And it's a hardback as well. Or it certainly used to be. Oh, in the good old days. You used to be able to be practically... If you mishandled it, it could take your eye out. Durham. Hello, David.
Hello, Nick.
David.
Hello, can you hear us all right?
I can hear you.
Yeah, lovely. I'd like you to imagine a scenario and then answer a question. Would you do that for me, please?
Imagine a world far, far away.
Right.
Yes.
No. Well, it is for you, actually. Can you imagine that if your gaffer on Monday morning summoned you into his office?
Summoned? I don't like the sound of that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
aye, and he says, Nick, we've got some Polish bloke who's a good presenter. He's just as good as you. He can speak good English, but he'll do the job for half what we're paying you.
Right.
So sorry, mate, but you're on the door.
Yeah.
And wherever you went, it was the same story.
But what if it was an English person that was as good as me and could do the job at half the price?
I'm talking about Brexit here, though.
Yeah, but you're not. You're talking about one person doing a job at half the price of somebody else. Well, what if it was an English person?
I knew you were going to do something like this. I'm asking you, how would you feel about Brexit if some Polish bloke took your job?
Right, but it has little to do with Brexit. I'm saying, what if you're talking about someone who's more desperate than you? Yes, yeah. So that person could be British.
I'm just one of these daft Northerners with me flat vowels and me flat cap, and I just don't exist as far as you're concerned, do I?
David, do you really think that life for the poor is going to get better once we're out of the EU? Have you been persuaded to believe that?
I'll tell you where it is. I would probably still have my job if we weren't in Europe.
What was your job?
I used to be a machine operator. I worked in a factory that made parts for the automotive industry.
David, that job will have disappeared by probably Monday morning, and all of the people in that factory will have been replaced by robots.
Correct. Can you answer my question, please, or are you just going to skirt around it? How would you feel about Brexit if some Polish bloke took your job?
I wouldn't associate that problem with Brexit, because another person could have taken my job, and in that particular job that you've just described...
Could have, but just imagine it was a Polish bloke.
Yeah. Well,
how would you feel about Brexit then?
Oh, I wouldn't associate it with Brexit. I refer you to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Right. Okay. And I'll tell you where it is. The only trouble that's making Brexit difficult is that people like you came up with things like soft Brexit. That didn't even exist until after the referendum.
Well, neither did hard Brexit. Nobody mentioned either soft or hard before the referendum.
It was just Brexit. It was in or out.
Yes, but it was the type. Yes, David. The type of out had not been discussed, along with many other things like the Irish border and so on.
Yeah, it was just out. That was the choice.
Yes, but your concept of what out was has only become crystallised in the 2 odd years since.
I'll tell you something else.
You gave it not 1 second's worth of thought beforehand.
If you think that the trouble that there's going to be...
please don't promise riots again. Please don't promise riots again, because that is just such a pathetic response.
It's not a pathetic...
It is throwing yourself to the floor in the supermarket because Mummy won't buy you any chocolate. That's exactly what it is. It's a tantrum. It's a baby having a fit. If I don't get my way... a way that I have manufactured and made up since the vote, not before, definitely not before. There was no discussion about hard or soft or deals or borders or any of that stuff beforehand. It was just this vague promise that things were going to get better, and that's what people voted for. And all of that became that came into being, all of those thoughts about how and how strong and how long and the softness of it, like we're buying tissue paper. All that came in afterwards. Not a syllable was mentioned about that before. And David, if you work in one of those jobs which a robot can take over, then it's about to disappear, along with probably 50% of the jobs that are currently being done by people in this country. So if a Polish person took your job, it's for a variety of reasons. You can't blame the Polish person. You would be perhaps better off directing your disappointment at the people that hired him. It's not the Poles' fault. It's the fault of the people that are doing the hiring. And they're going to fire that Polish person probably by this time next week, and replace him with a robot. We're all our eye is in the wrong direction. We're all looking at the wrong thing. I've said this before. We're moving grains of sand around on a beach. Behind us, a tidal wave of change is coming our way, and no one is paying the blindest bit of difference of attention because nobody can think of what to do about it. And this isn't some sci-fi happening that's going to occur a long way into the future. It's next year. It could be next month. It's certainly within the next 5 years, and absolutely within 10 years. Don't worry that a poll has just taken your job. That no human will be doing your job shortly. And, again, to answer your question for the third time, or fourth perhaps, I would not associate that with Brexit. It had nothing to do with it. Because a British person could be easily as desperate. I mean, we are. The desperation is obvious for the queues outside food banks, for crying out loud. You think other British people don't want to do your job? Anyway, I wish you all the best. 0345 6060 973. You can text. Just got lost. 84850. Tweet at LBC and email nicka@lbc.co.uk. Friday and Saturday night at 10, Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC.
The Skoda test drive experience.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
Ruben says, if only our Mrs. May could learn a trick or two from the great Donald on being the most tremendous negotiator ever to have existed and come up with a viable and realistic plan for Brexit, like cancel Brexit. Oh, I've got to do some Donald Trump. Oh, hey, and I have this story, this really heartwarming story about a tremendous person who did a great thing. But it's a positive story, so probably nobody's remotely interested. Remind me and I'll do it later. 0345 6060 973. Who's been waiting the longest? Wembley. Natu.
Hello, Nick.
Natu.
How are you?
Great, mate.
I love your show.
Thanks.
I always look forward to Friday and Saturday. Yes.
Me too.
And I like the way you say what the hell's going on in America.
That's not me saying it.
In the White House.
I would never say that.
What the hell is going on?
Exactly. I know what's going on. Huh?
Lock him up. That's what I say.
We've been taken for a ride. And the ride is going to be on the wall. Mexico wall. You get that?
No.
Wall. Pink wall. Pink.
Yeah, no, still not getting it.
No, it's a song, Pink Floyd song, yeah. Off the Wall, Michael Jackson, that's it.
Right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Nick.
Yes?
We should leave EU, because in the long term we'll be saving money, don't we? Won't we?
If you say so, Natu.
It's all about money. Abbot song.
Oh, God, you're a whole record library, you are.
And also, Nick...
Oh, there's another thing? Yes.
Yes. What's the difference between politics?
Oh, I'm sorry, we ran out of time on that call. Gosh, I hate when that happens. 0345 6060 973. Just when it was getting good, too. Paul says, all this talk from Brexiteers of civil war, etc., if they don't get their way, is nonsense, in my opinion. Paul says the biggest threat is if no deal became reality, turned really ugly by ripping a huge hole in our economy, combined with shortages of medicines and food, etc., then that could really bring about civil unrest. You bet it could. But that is just Project Fear. Craig says, Leave voters are like Pavlov's dogs. All it takes is for Nigel Farage to shake his little bell and they all, and they all start salivating.
I'm a nutcase.
Yeah. Oh, they call in and with the complaining.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
That's what I thought. 0345 6060 973. Let's have Orpington. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello there.
Hello there.
I'm not here at all.
What?
I'm not a Brexiteer at all. My husband, partner, listens to your show, drives me absolutely insane every morning.
I'm not on in the morning.
No, I know you're not. And Nigel Farage is, he's like 6 o'clock in the morning, I need to hear about Brexit.
Yeah, Nigel Farage isn't on in the morning either.
But sometimes people just need a little bit of a rest. We don't actually really care. We're not politicians. We don't actually give a flying F.
Well, you sound like you're giving this a lot of thought, Rebecca. I'll leave you to your thought. 2 in a row on the Nicky Abbott Show. 0345 6060 973. Well, I'm sorry, but I've only got a 3-hour show. I can only take just so much. You know what? Yeah. Jennifer says, do you think that Donald Trump is the biggest or bigly loudest snowflake of them all? Oh, if there's a thinner-skinned person on Earth, I do not know of that person than Donald Trump. Hey, Donald, are you tired of winning yet? He's a serial failure. What do you think, Melania?
I don't care.
Martin says there's no point in trying to explain cricket to anyone who is not interested. Their loss. No, it's not my loss, Martin. It's my gain. The amount of hours I have gained by not watching cricket are immeasurable. Football, yes. Cricket, absolutely not. It's not even a sport. It's a pastime. Mike says the best thing about cricket is the streakers. Get Ray... Oh, what's his name? Ray... Yeah, they call it the streak. Ray Stevens? Oh, I bet that's right. Ray Stevens. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a gong for that. I can't remember what I did last Monday, and yet I can remember Ray Stevens. I haven't heard that song probably since about 1975. Good grief. Memory is... it's a weird thing, ain't it?
Yes.
Let's have Welling. Hello, Jean.
Hello.
Jean.
Hello. Right. Yes.
You must remember Ray Stevens and the Streak.
Disgusting. Yes.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah.
A little bit.
Anyway. Yeah. Got a bone to pick with you.
Oh no!
Wait.
I haven't done something wrong again, have I?
Yes, because I get annoyed at people saying I didn't know what I voted for, but I did, and I know what I voted for, and I would vote for the same thing again.
What did you vote for?
And I'll tell you the reasons why I voted.
But what did you vote for?
I voted Leave.
But but what kind of leave? You wanted to crash out? You wanted to sail out with no deal, or did you want to have some sort of negotiated trade deal?
I wouldn't mind going out with no deal.
But
I've listened to Jacob Rees-Mogg, and it's
oh my God,
him right back. But what I'm saying is, he has a lot of history that he knows about the country and everything, and he thinks it's great to sort of go down that path. But also, why I voted for it in the first place was because I feel that over the 2 world wars that we've had...
Oh, my God.
We fought for our country. Our soldiers died for
Oh, no, we're not still fighting the war, are we?
Yes, because the EU... Now, for a drop of our hat, if we was just to say, oh, right, yes, you can have it, we're paying 39 billion for the privilege, plus for them to carry on and control our laws, we've just given it away like that.
Like what laws?
Well, they control our country. They say what we can and can't do. We can't trade with other countries like we'd like to.
Yes, we do.
So we would have a lot more freedom.
But to do what?
To trade with other countries.
But we trade with other countries. Name a country we don't trade with.
I don't know, but we would have more.
Well, name one. I'll make it really easy for you, Jean. Name one country on Earth that we do not trade with because of the evil EU.
Well, you tell me.
No, you said it. You said that we could trade with more countries. Name one.
Well, I think we could. We could open.
Well, name one country. How do you think that we would be able to negotiate a better trade deal for us on our own than with the might of the EU behind us? How would that even be possible?
Because I mean, you saw the other day that Theresa May had the Prime Minister from New Zealand come over. I'm sure she probably did. It wasn't a nicey. She probably...
New Zealand. You would have to leave the planet to get further away, for a start. Plus, there's hardly anybody lives in New Zealand. What are we going to trade with New Zealand that we don't already send there? And what would they send to us that they don't do already?
But it's not only that. We wouldn't have the problem of this wretched backstop, because if we come out and we have a no deal, we can make our own laws.
You don't even... Do you even understand what the backstop is?
It's all to do with border control.
It's about leaving the EU. If we weren't leaving the EU, there wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, but we voted. We had the greater majority of the country voting to leave the EU, and yet we're trying to do a fudged-up one with...
No, what you fail to understand, Jean, even after all this time, is that politicians are trying desperately not to minimise the damage.
Yeah. But I think.
But you
a
don't.
lot of it is
You don't mind about that. Okay, so.
No, it's not that. I think.
But you have no information other than you've heard people like Jacob Rees-Mogg say that it's scaremongering. He'll be fine, Jean. He is a multi-millionaire.
Yeah, but you've got some. I must admit, you've got some people in trades or directors saying yes, it would hurt them.
Not
Other
some.
Ones,
Not some.
They're not
Many.
saying it will. They're not saying it will. They're
Who
saying
is?
it's better for them.
Who? The guy who runs pubs. The guy who runs pubs.
A few, yes.
That guy.
Yeah, that one, Weatherspoon.
Well, I very much doubt that his business will be affected one way or the other, because he doesn't trade internationally. It's a trade within the borders of this country. Name another.
Yeah.
Name another who would be actually affected one way or the other by us leaving the EU.
Now, I know that Dyson has gone out to
exactly.
Singapore.
Bingo.
He was, but he said it's literally just a case of, like, money.
Yes, and then he left.
Yeah.
Well, what does that tell you?
It still tells me, I still think a lot of it is scaremongering, to be
but
honest.
only because you've heard someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg say that. You're basing that opinion on no information of any kind, Jean. It's just a feeling you've got. It's a wish, isn't it?
But I do think...
but your thinking is irrelevant. You might think that ghosts are real, or that we're being run by aliens, but that thought is based on no facts. It's just a feeling.
So are you saying that me and 52% of our country have all been basing it on a feeling that we're all wrong?
Yes, precisely. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, you all based it on a feeling. You had no information, no facts at your fingertips. You still, almost 3 years later, have no facts at your fingertips. It's still just feelings. That's the astonishing thing about this. People are still basing their opinions on nothing. They voted on a feeling. On no facts at all. There weren't any. There were no facts that would lead you to make the decision to leave the European Union. Zero. Not one single one. The only things that were suggested were lies. They were lies and wish lists. And what's astonishing to me is that I get call after call after call of people just like Jean, who who are absolutely determined that they made the right decision. But it still is based on just a feeling, which just blows my mind. To be defending yourself for 3 years, practically, to be making this argument with other people for 3 years and still not know a single thing about which you speak, it just amazes me. It's just astonishing. And we, as a country, have decided to follow those people who've made their mind up on a whim, a wish. Is that any way to run a country?
No.
I'm astounded. I really am. I mean, I understand people's a strong feeling about this, but feelings don't mean facts. Which is one of the reasons why people aren't interested in facts anymore, because they refuse to learn. It's willful ignorance. It's not that they don't know, it's that they refuse to learn anything about it. Probably in case they are persuaded that they made the wrong decision, which would entail loss of face. It's just amazing. The position that we've got ourselves in now, in future, historians are going to look back at this and think, what the... Well, they're going to quote Donald Trump.
What the hell is going on?
Well, they will say, in the past tense. I am stunned. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday and Saturday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC. Just past 11:30. The news headlines here with Andy Ivy.
At least 40 people have died in Brazil after a dam.
We're not immune. John in Dulwich says, "You coward, Nick." Oh, what? You couldn't deal with David the Northerner. So that's a bit offensive, isn't it? David the Northerner makes him sound like a different species. Says, you couldn't deal with David the Northerner, so you sneer at him. If anyone wonders why this country is splitting, it's exactly because of people like you, coward. Now, that's wishful thinking on your part, John. I didn't sneer at him. I answered his question. I just didn't agree with his assertion, that's all. If you didn't hear that, there's a fella who had been usurped by a Polish person who, according to him, would do his work at half the price, which makes it, to me, sound, on reflection, as though he was perhaps overpaid. But that's by the by. And he said that what would happen if somebody came in from Poland and did my job at half the price? How would I feel about Brexit then? And I said, over and over again, despite the fact that he didn't accept my answer, he kept asking the same question, I said that I wouldn't associate it with Brexit. And if somebody can do your job at half the price, well, maybe that's the price that your job is valued at. And I think that on reflection, I didn't say that at the time, but he just kept asking me the same question, so I had to keep giving him the same answer. I think I dealt with him okay, and I didn't sneer at him, John. You wanted me to, but I didn't. I looked for it, actually. I used to carry around, I've got no end of bits of paper. I must have 400 bits of paper in front of me. I can only carry so many. I used to have studies that have been done both mostly in America, but here as well. And I don't believe there's any study that says that overall immigrants lower wages. What those studies do tend to show is that immigrants tend to take lower paid jobs, freeing the local population up to do higher paid jobs, like become managerial, not necessarily white collar, going up into the office, but being supervisors and so on. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that never happens, and that individuals may be subject to that happening to them, but overall, it doesn't. Immigration does not lower wages, and neither does it take jobs, because we have record employment. I mean, you can't get around that. The people that have come here aren't coming here to lie around and avail themselves of our luxurious benefit system. They just aren't. But that is a fact, and I am perfectly aware that nobody's interested in those anymore. Meanwhile, Jim in Mitcham says, I'm going to seem like an utter monster, but if a Polish guy whose second language is English is able to do your job well enough that they can conceive to replace you, you're rubbish at your job, and maybe you need to try harder. It's something people in this country don't want to hear. It's always somebody else's fault, never theirs. Wow. I love it when listeners start picking fights with each other. Let's have a call in Epsom. Martin.
Hi, Nick.
Martin.
You're irreplaceable, so...
well, that's not true. I could be replaced by a robot within about 2 seconds.
Affirmative. Okay, well, let's hope that doesn't happen. I wanted to call up because you mentioned the buzzword Nadine Dorries, which is, of course, the patron saint of uninformed politics. However...
you may say that. You may say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
However, it is my opinion that one of the most dangerous levers to the country at the moment is Jeremy Corbyn, and I say that as a bit of a lefty. I'm not someone that reads the Daily Mail or the Express or the Telegraph or whatever. I read the Guardian and the Times and the Financial Times.
Well, would you say that the Times is a lefty paper? I mean, being as how it's run by Rupert Murdoch and all?
Well, apart from the fact that they did back Brexit in 2016, since then they've had some of the best journalism on the issue out of any British newspaper out there, really.
I'll be honest, the Times is the last paper I go to, principally because it was one of the first behind a paywall, so I just kind of gave up on... I wasn't going to pay for it, so... the amount of money that Rupert Murdoch needs from me, I mean, I'm at my sufficient now. You don't need no more money from me. So, as there are alternatives, I started to look elsewhere, and it's the last paper I read.
But to be completely fair to the Murdoch empire, it is, I've found, to be relatively neutral on most important issues. So,
well, having said that, I do actually read the Sunday Times, but only really the TV. I get the Sunday Times because I go to a supermarket, and if you buy like £5 worth of stuff, they give it to you for free. So I thought, oh yeah, all right then.
Is that Waitrose?
Without mentioning any brand names, Waitrose, you say? But I would have bought it for A.A. Gill. Just him on his own he was the best columnist this country has probably ever had. I mean, his use of the English language is just an absolute marvel. And then he ain't writing no more because I think he's still dead. And then Michael Winner, he was consistently funny, and he died too. So if Jeremy Clarkson dies, well, that's it. I'm leaving.
I was literally about to mention he writes for the Times. Yeah. So, we've got that one. Anyway, I'm on to the point I was trying to make.
Right.
Jeremy Corbyn, I think, is at real odds with his party at the moment because something ridiculous like 85 million% of Labour members want a second referendum. And if I'm very honest, I don't want a second referendum.
We should have a second referendum.
I truly believe that we need a second referendum because I think it's going to be grueling, I think it's going to be nasty, and I think, well, I mean, it'd be great for your job, but other than that, everyone else is going to suffer, and I think it's probably the course of least suffering, and the fact that Jeremy Corbyn will not back any Brexit position at all. I mean, you can count on the Tories to be nasty and evil, but the Labour Party are meant to be the good guys, and that is why I'm so utterly disappointed with them. I think the Labour Party are letting down the country more than the Conservatives at the moment, simply because they do not have a direction, and we need some... everyone expected Corbyn to be the sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics.
Well, just because he's old and he's got a beard.
Yeah, he looks a little bit like Alec Guinness.
A little bit, yeah.
But he's just sort of turned out to be Jabba the Hutt, and it's just... off in his own little world, not really interested in sort of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with you in principle. I think that the Conservative Party they don't appear to be, I mean, apart from perhaps you could say, if you really squinted, that Mrs M is trying to negotiate some sort of central path, that she's not going to please everybody, but she's trying to... You could make a case that she's trying to minimise damage. But I think the rest of the Conservative Party, they're just ideologues who are fighting with each other with the little interest as to what happens to the country. They're more interested in their party and their careers and their fashioning a future for themselves rather than doing what's best for the country. But the Labour Party should actually be filling that role. I mean, it's a giant gap you could drive a big red lying bus through, and they are singularly failing to do that. I agree with you.
Yeah, the fact that they're not 20, 30 points ahead in the polls is fairly embarrassing.
It is terrible, yeah.
And I'd also like to say, I know that you sympathise with Theresa May, so I want to pull you up on that.
I think she was a terrible Home Secretary and a pretty dismal Prime Minister, but I do think that at the moment she is trying to... It appears as though she's trying to do what's right for the future of the country rather than her party, but I may have that wrong.
I think that there might be elements of both in there, and I think that if she was trying to put country before party, she would go for a Norway model. If we are to Brexit, that Norway is the ultimate compromise, I think. The problem is that foreigners were weaponised by people like, what's his name, the Northerner, as he was called in that text message earlier. People who have absolutely no evidence for their suggestions. And to be honest, if you point out to people that immigration is a good thing for this country, and they still insist, with facts and figures, and they still insist
it's white noise. What's his name? Aaron Banks was absolutely right about. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Adam Banks was right. Facts are like white noise to people. As soon as you start mentioning numbers and the things that are factual, they just switch off. Not interested. You need to get an easily memorable, easily repeatable, short phrase and just repeat it over and over and over again. And you just have to look at Donald Trump to see how successful that was. All of his phrases were 3 or 4 words long that you could. He threw it out, and the crowd could chant it back.
And that is why I think the Labour Party owe a duty of care to this country. I think they owe a real duty of care, which they are breaching at the moment.
I agree.
They're not holding up their end, and I think when the history books are written, which you and I will never read, because
I'll wait till the video comes out.
When they're written, they are going to judge Corbyn, I think, more harshly than May, because I think
because Corbyn's got no excuse. Yeah, I think you're right.
And as an opposition leader, you can just throw grenades in.
Well, he's got an open field. That's precisely correct. Yeah. And there is no impediment to his actions because they don't actually have consequences. Not in the real world. He can chuck anything he likes in there, and he's seriously failing to do that. Agreed. Which is why I voted Green last time and Green the time before.
Well, the lunatic fringe of the left use the phrase, don't interrupt your enemy while they're making a mistake. Well, when the enemy's burning your house down, you should
maybe you should raise a finger of complaint. Yeah, quite. All right, thanks a lot, Martin. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC.
It's my huge, huge honour to present such an important award tonight.
LBC at...
Thank you for holding. Your call's important to us.
Yes, I really mean that. Pauline says you are so out of touch, like the politicians. Politicians. P-O-L-I-T-I-T-I-O-N-S. I mean, I don't want to criticise your spelling, Pauline, but your spelling is awful. You are so out of touch like the politicians. What, like Donald Trump?
Touch, feel, that's what I do.
Julia says, are all these people who want to sail out of the EU... Are all these people who want to sail out of the EU sound brainwashed? They all say the same thing. Well, I think I know what you mean. Are all these people who want to sail out of the EU sound brainwashed? They all say the same thing. The war, all the immigrants they've never met, bleeding the country dry, all this hate these people have for Europeans, very worrying. Well, I don't think it's specifically for Europeans. I just think it's blindly lashing out at the world for the situation that they find themselves in. Here is the news. Not everybody wins. Not everybody gets prizes. I mean, life is cruel. Get David Attenborough on the phone and he'll explain it to us. I mean, at least we're out of the food chain. Be thankful for that. But just because your life didn't work out like you're sailing into the sunset in a solid gold boat, clinking your cocktail glasses together on the poop deck, doesn't mean to say that it's Europeans' fault. Who are people going to blame when AI fires half the population? Are you going to blame Europe then too?
Correct.
Actually, I had somebody on the phone. Was it yesterday or maybe last weekend? I don't know. All those sort of blends together, really. Somebody on the phone who blamed the march of artificial intelligence and its imminent effect on the jobs market was the fault of George Soros. I mean, that's a stretch. Jono in Norwich says, the more I listen to your show, the more I realise how stupid and misguided I was for voting Leave. As much as I detest the EU as an organisation or political union, the monumental administrative process of leaving was not made clear. The arguments of sovereignty and immigration are backed by nothing but slogans and cherry-picking of individual cases. Wow. Spot on, Jono. Let's have Berry. Hello, Peter.
Hello there.
Hello there.
I had a dream that I'm going to win the lottery. Well, it didn't happen. Never mind.
Oh.
But I just got on with it again.
Yes,
You just get on with life.
Mm-hmm.
You ever feel that you're mind controlled, Nick? You know, like, to take yourself back to 2016 when we had to put that X in the box,
Yeah.
and you were all mind controlled by the £350 million of the buzz. But I couldn't remember seeing on the buzz where it said, we'll give it to the NHS. I didn't see that bit, unless it was in small print.
But it did, though.
No, I didn't think it did, but I'll have to look at it again tomorrow when I get the internet up. Thing is, my father said it was brilliant that after the war, we all got together and got on with it again. Oh, we had to rebuild the railways. We had to rebuild the schools, the hospitals. We had to rebuild villages and some towns.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that now, my dad says. My dad's 92. He's still alive. He was an ex-tank driver. He said, we don't have to do that anymore. We just have to believe. We have to believe in ourselves that we can do it. Just like the man who gets divorced and he gets kicked out because he's been adulterizing with the woman next door. But she don't want to know him anymore because the secret's out. So he has to leave with his car keys in his car and a change of underwear and maybe £1,000 that his wife's given him, and he's got to get on with it. And he does get on with it because he has nowhere else to go apart from putting his head in a noose and hanging himself.
Wow, that took a nasty turn right at the end there.
Well, it's true in some cases because I've met these people who've been near to the edge, haven't they? The thing is, they've had to get on with themselves because of the sake of the children that the wife has kept. And I agree in a certain case what Nick Ferrari said, actually, on Question Time on Thursday. He said, so what does it have to be? After 2 years of trying to get away from a divorce, that now I have to go back and live with my wife again. I thought, that's exactly... when you think about it, get the parable out of the way, it's quite true. They want us now.
Yeah.
The thing is, just another thing there, you've got to fault this yourself. It's great democracy, isn't it? And until when democracy realises that the people are catching up with it, and, well, we don't want to know it, though, because we're losing control. The EU Commission, you cannot vote out. Simple as that. So
well, you can't vote the Queen out. I mean, I don't see what.
Come on. No, that's gone years ago when James came back in again. So let's look at when James II came back on the throne. When Oliver Cromwell died.
Can I just pause you there? Maybe it's just me, but we've been talking for a good long while, and I don't actually know what point it is you're making.
I'm trying to put a point that we should not go down to fear. Project Fear is winning constantly. It's the sheeple.
Oh, right, okay. So the businesses who are saying that we are so concerned that we have either already made moves to move some or all of our business out of the UK, that's just Project Fear.
Well, I remember 20 years ago in where I lived, there was a Dutch firm who bought a paint manufacturers. And they said, they run it for the year two. They said, we're going to move production now to our base in Hull.
Yeah.
So they did that. So about 1,000 people lost their jobs in the town where I live. And then after about 5 years in Hull, they moved it all to Holland.
Yeah.
This is the situation with foreign companies coming in buying British firms. And I'm not going to be hypocritical about this, because British companies go and buy foreign companies.
Right, well, again, you're kind of losing me, Peter. Hang on a minute. What is your answer? The companies that said that they're going to leave, is that just are they just making it up?
Well, propaganda is fear. They want us to stay in.
So yes, then. So yes, they are making it up.
Yeah.
How about the companies that have already moved? Are they just kidding?
Isn't their prerogative to do what they want with the company that they own?
Well, yes, of course. But if they've only moved because we're leaving the EU, and if we are going to be negatively affected by that move, then surely that's something
James Dyson has Dysoned everybody out in this country. Virtually nearly 1 in 2 people own a Dyson. So
that's completely untrue. One in two people in this country own a Dyson. What are you talking about? Where are you getting these facts, Peter? You're just making them up. Oh, God, here we go with the made-up facts again. I can't stand it. Project Fear. Again, based on no evidence of any kind whatsoever, other than you just want it to be true. That all of these companies, all of these corporations, all of these business societies, these people who represent many businesses, who employ many millions of people, All of them are saying that we either have moved already, and how that could possibly be construed as Project Fear, I don't know. We've left. What, are they kidding about that? They've left only to scare us. They're really intending to come back. The delusion is deep with these people. It's just incredible. Project Fear. It's like trying to converse with. I have to remember my developmental psychology. At what age does a child just say, "No, it isn't"? Please, Daddy. Please, Daddy. Please, Daddy. It's about that age, isn't it? It's just saying, "Oh no, it isn't," or maybe it's the pantomime stuff. Yeah. Oh yes, it is. Oh no, it isn't. That's the level we're at right now. If you hear something that you don't agree with, that you previously haven't thought, then you just say, "Oh no, it isn't," regardless of whether it actually is or not, whether it demonstrably is or not. You just say, "Oh no, it isn't," and then magically it will become so. Like we've all got a Harry Potter wand. They're not kidding, these companies. They've made plans already. Such plans will not be undone. That's not how business works. A well-run business plans for 5 years and 10 years ahead. And they can't do that right now. Not here. And so what are they going to do? Just sit in their hands and wait till we work it out amongst ourselves? In the meantime, their business is being overtaken by other, more other businesses in other countries which have a clearer future ahead of them. Of course not. That would be a bad CEO who does that. Naughty CEO. And a bad CEO don't get no bonuses. Well, actually, some of them do. Some CEOs get a bonus regardless of how cack-handed their ineptitude. But to hear business after business after business say we're upping sticks and we're leaving, or we're moving our headquarters to another country, or we are opening an office in the EU, and we would have expanded in this country, but we're just employing 1,000 people over there. And we're slimming down our operations in this country, and again and again and again you hear these people, and at each instance the Brexiteer fundamentalist ultras always say, "Oh no, it isn't. Oh, that's just Project Fear," as though that will make it just go away. God, it's excruciating. But we're being led by those people. And that does not give this country pause for thought is just really alarming to me. Actually, we're being led by donkeys. We are actually being led by asses. I mean, if the refusal to learn any information upon which you base your decisions is the definition of an ass, then I think we're all looking for a ride on Blackpool Beach.
What's he got to be depressed about?
Well, pretty much half the people that are calling me. D says, "We voted to be our own country again." Yeah, that's about the moronic level of debate that we're at around about now, D. Congratulations. Bullseye. We voted to be our own country again. Yeah, that's about where we're at. Paul says, "I'm absolutely fuming. Furious I am. My mate told me about WTO last week and I want it. I want it right now. I don't know exactly what it is, but my mate is clued up on this stuff and we've got to go for it. We've got to get out of this European unelected superstate. It's what every one of the 17.4 million voted for. We aren't scared of Project Fear. Bring it on. Not bothered if we're worse off. We'll cope. Pull up the drawbridge and man our borders. Good riddance to the world. We'll survive the onslaught. Furious I am. Absolutely raging." I think Paul is trolling us. Trolling is not polite.
Be polite!
Back under your bridge, troll. And Mikey says, here are some very easy rules about... Oh, some, perhaps. Here are some very easy rules about cricket. The team that is out, try to get the team that is in out. And when the team that was in is out, the team that was out go in. And the team that was in, try to get the team that was out out. I hope that was pretty clear for you. Yeah, thanks. You've really cleared that all up for me, Mikey. Cheers, mate. 0345 6060 973. I do have a positive story. Do you want that now or later? I'll do it now, and then I'll get into Project Fear. All right, are you ready? This is a positive... I know we ain't had many of those over the last... ever. Over the last ever. Listen carefully. Andrew Davis has spent the last 7 years raising £150,000 for the NHS. And he's done it for a very specific reason. And it's a very specific amount of money. Andrew Davis has spent the last 7 years raising £150,000 for paying back the NHS for his life-saving bone marrow transplant, reports the Daily Mail. He was 13 when he was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, a rare and aggressive form of blood cancer, and that was in September 2012. After 3 rounds of chemotherapy, doctors told him his best chance of beating the disease was through a transplant, which he successfully had 3 months later. Since then, the student, now 20, from Derbyshire, has made it his mission to repay the NHS. From selling wristbands at school to organising charity balls with local sports stars, he's worked hard to raise the estimated £150,000 that his treatment cost. Yesterday, he handed over the last instalment to the Children's Hospital charity in Sheffield to say thank you for saving his life.
Thank you!
He said, it all started with people asking if there was anything that they could do for me. It started with them doing odd jobs to help out when I was in hospital. But you run out of things for people to do. I knew the hospital benefited a lot from raising donations, so we started asking people if they wanted to contribute to that. He said, that's when I decided that I wanted to raise the equivalent to the whole cost of the bone marrow transplant. He said, I spoke to one of my transplant nurses, Julie, and asked her, had I not been treated by the NHS, what would the cost of my bone marrow transplant have been? And she told me it was about £150,000. He said, it's a huge sum, but I'm delighted to be able to say that we've achieved this a few years down the line. But having the amazing support of my family and friends, I knew it was only ever going to be a case of when, rather than if, we raised the money. He says, to know that I'm contributing to making a real difference to the lives of other patients that are in a similar position to the one that I was in is fantastic. Andrew Davis, we salute you. An actual positive story. Can you believe that?
No.
Now, let's get back to all that negativity.
Oh, no.
So, okay, Project Fear. You want Project Fear? I'll give it to you. In the latest and long line of chief industrialists telling us that there might be bad consequences for their companies based here if we leave the EU without a deal, a fella called Tom Enders, the German in charge of the giant aeronautic and defence company Airbus, stepped up warnings about the consequences of crashing out, branding the government's handling of Brexit a disgrace, and suggesting that Airbus might need to pull out of the UK if close ties to the EU do not carry on. And the response from the Conservative government was to heed his warnings closely and act accordingly. Just kidding. They had a purple-faced fit you could see from the moon.
Oh, fabulous.
Tory Brexiteer Mark Francois went on television to attack the head of Airbus for threatening to pull the firm out of the UK. Mark Francois accused Tom Enders of Teutonic arrogance for warning about the consequences of a no-deal Brexit. OK. First, doesn't Mark Francois sound a little, well, foreign? Second, if you want to see the very definition of a man glorying in his own magnificent arrogance, just look up that video of Mark Francois addressing the cameras. And to drive home his Britishness, he mentioned the war.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that lot are always going on about the war like we're still battling the nasty Nazis. I think it's for the same reason that the History Channel is wall-to-wall Hitler. It brings in a certain audience. Let's call them old people. And they bang on about the war like it was the last time that we won anything. It's a time when there was no food in the shops and men were being slaughtered and bombs were falling from the sky. You know, the good old days. So he couldn't help himself, couldn't wait to stick it to Jerry and bash the Bosch that's running Airbus. He actually started talking about the D-Day landings. He said, "My father, Reginald Francois, was an engineer who served in the Royal Navy during the Second World War and a minesweeper on D-Day. He never submitted to bullying by any German, and neither will his son." And then he made a big show of ripping up a copy of Tom Ender's words. And he wins this week's award for demonstration of asininity in front of TV cameras. I mean, it's one thing continually barking at anyone who says bad things may come from a hard Brexit as being part of Project Fear, but a businessman telling us that he might have to pull out of the country rather than lose money and become uncompetitive isn't Project Fear, it's Project Fact. I mean, we got to the point that even those people who are supposed to be acting in the best interests of the country, our elected representatives, are refusing to believe anything anyone says if it doesn't coincide with their own ideologies.
Yes.
Oh, right, OK, well, good to know. I mean, are any of the Conservative Party actually acting in the best interests of the country or the interests of themselves and their own party? Meanwhile, Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, re-emphasised his warning about the huge economic damage from crashing out of the EU, saying it would be a betrayal of the British people. Which sounds about right to me. The millionaires and the billionaires who are behind Brexit are conning us into doing something that will do no harm to them. In fact, it'll probably do them a lot of good. Betting, as I suspect they are, against the pound. And when the pound goes down, they cash in. But we won't. It'll damage our prospects for the rest of our lives. And people talk about short-term pain. Well, you know, the last recession was short-term pain. We were in a recession, and then we weren't. And 12 years later, we have double the national debt that we had then, and after 10 years of austerity, that figure is still going up every hour of every day. So we've still not recovered from that short-term pain, and it doesn't look like we ever will. At least not in our lifetimes. I mean, if after 10 years of police budgets slashed and council budgets slashed and fewer doctors and nurses and carers and more potholes and less bin collections and libraries closing and all the rest of it, after all that we're still sinking under the weight of the debts piled up after the last bout of short-term pain, it's probably not going to turn out well to heap more pain on top, is it? I mean, it'd be like throwing a lead weight to a drowning man. Here's a short list of some of the companies that are making plans for Brexit by moving. They include, of course, the chief Brexiteer headbanger himself, Jacob Rees-Mogg, whose asset management firm opened in Ireland, citing the uncertainty of Brexit and the potential difficulties it could cause his wealthy clients. Referring to Brexit, the fund's prospectus said, and I quote, "During and possibly after this period, there is likely to be considerable uncertainty as to the position of the UK and the arrangements which will apply to its relationship with the EU and other countries following its withdrawal. This uncertainty may affect other countries in the EU or elsewhere if they're considered to be impacted by these events. As the firm is based in the UK and a fund's investments may be located in the UK or the EU, a fund may, as a result, be affected by the events described above." Mogg said the decision to launch the fund was nothing whatsoever to do with Brexit, so you can either believe Jacob Rees-Mogg's firm or Jacob Rees-Mogg. I can't see how they can both be right. But that's a small issue. Let's move on. Companies leaving, or making plans to leave. Airbus Chief Executive Tom Enders said a no-deal Brexit would force Airbus, which employs more than 14,000 people in the UK and around 110,000 more jobs connected in supply chains, to make potentially very harmful decisions about its UK operations. That's what he said. He said there are plenty of countries that would love to build its plane parts. Correct. And then there's Dyson. Brexit-backing billionaire Sir James Dyson is moving his company's headquarters to Singapore. And that means that Dyson's no longer a British registered company, and Singapore will become its main tax base. And P&O, the ferry operator, said it would re-register its entire English Channel fleet under the flag of Cyprus, so it could continue to use EU tax arrangements after Brexit. A P&O spokesman said it would lead to fewer inspections and delays and will result in significantly more favourable tonnage tax arrangements, as the ships will be flagged in an EU member state. Sony, the electrics firm, announced it'll move its European headquarters from London to Amsterdam to avoid potential customs complications after Britain leaves the EU. It's one of several companies shifting its legal base to an EU member state. Panasonic preempted Sony by already moving its headquarters to Amsterdam last year. Honda, the Japanese car giant, shutting down its Swindon factory, where it employs 3,400 people, for 6 days in April to prepare for post-Brexit disruption. Bosses said it'll help them to adjust to all possible outcomes caused by logistics and border issues. Last year, Honda Europe's senior vice president said a no-deal Brexit would cost the company millions. And then there's the chief executive of Bentley, who said the luxury car maker is stockpiling parts to protect the firm's profitability after Brexit. Pets at Home, the nation's biggest pet supplier, revealed they are stockpiling cat and dog food because they don't want families to run out of food for their pets after Brexit. Earlier this month, EY, formerly known as Ernst & Young, revealed that 36%, or 80 out of 222, of the finance companies they monitor have said they are considering or have confirmed relocating their operations and staff to Europe. And this rises to 56% among universal banks, investment banks and brokerages. It's not Project Fear, it's It's Happened Already. But at least that's the full list of companies making plans to quit. Except it isn't, because thousands of British companies have already triggered emergency plans to cope with a no-deal Brexit. Many are gearing up to move operations abroad if the UK crashes out of the EU, according to the British Chambers of Commerce. But you can just dismiss all of that with a feeling. I don't know why I'm bothering. What's the point? It doesn't matter what happens. People will still say, oh, well, I don't believe it. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday and Saturday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC.
Everett.
Yeah! Dude! Peter says only a psychopath would laugh at people whose lives have been changed due to the flood of immigration. The left seem to attract a lot of psychopaths like Nick, as in me. They speak of empathy but don't feel it. They are deeply distasteful characters like Nick Abbott. He laughs. I'm a psychopath and you're an idiot. I hope that what are we, even now? I'd rather pay attention to the British Chambers of Commerce rather than somebody who blames the ills that are afflicting them on others, Peter. I mean, how's that working out for you, by the way? The British Chambers of Commerce said it believed that companies that had already gone ahead with their plans to leave or to move some of their operations abroad represented just the tip of the iceberg, and that many of its 75,000 members were already spending vital funds to prepare for a disorderly exit. You know, most of the companies in this country aren't preparing at all, because they haven't got the funds, they haven't got the time. The BCC said that in recent days alone it had been told that 35 firms had activated plans to move operations out of the UK or were stockpiling goods to combat the worst effects of Brexit. Labour MP Yvette Cooper told The Observer that two major employers in her West Yorkshire constituency, the luxury goods manufacturer Burberry and the confectioner Haribo, had both written to her, warning of the damaging effects of no deal on their UK operations. Burberry employs 750 people in Castleford, Haribo 700 across her constituency. But these are only people who actually run businesses and represent thousands of businesses and are experts in possession of facts. So nobody is remotely interested in anything they have to say. We're all about feelings now. And if you feel that everything is going to be all right, it will magically come to pass. But, that's just a psychopath speaking, so what do I know? Isleworth. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Nick. Yeah. These leavers just drive me mad. I'm going more grayer and grayer. They want the will of the people. They won, fair enough. But then they only won by a little margin, so they have to sort of take our point of view. We have to have a compromise. I know we have to leave because they won. Hopefully not. But I'll go along with that. But then all their arguments, sovereignty. They wanted sovereignty. When Parliament gives something to them, they say they don't like it. Well, they're not going to the will of the people. They want immigration controlled. We've always had control of immigration.
Yeah, that's true. More people come from outside the EU than from inside the EU. I think the countries that are sending more people than any others are China and Pakistan and India.
But even if we didn't have, who's going to do the jobs? I've been here in this country. I've been caught up in the Windrush trouble. But from 1962, they've wanted us to come and do the work because indigenous British people haven't wanted to do the jobs or haven't been clever enough to do it. So who's going to do the jobs when we control immigration?
I think that is going to be it's going to be a short-term problem, which will, in the short term, be overwhelmed by a much bigger problem. That is that all of those jobs that you're talking about, and many, many others besides, are going to be taken over by robots.
Affirmative.
And people just aren't prepared. People are reacting to that news as though it's not true. It's another one of these things that if you don't believe it, then it won't come true. It is going to happen, and it's going to happen really quickly. And what people are going to do about that, I really have absolutely no idea. But I do know that if people are coming here for work, when there is no work, they will stop coming. Don't worry about it. The immigration will dry up.
The thing that worries me, I got my kids are 18 and 20. We live here. Jacob's remote, 50 years, we can be in trouble and then come. I don't have the money to live in 50 years in depression.
No, I just think I do say this over and over, and nobody has an answer for this. Don't you think it's a little strange that all of the people that are pushing a hard Brexit most strongly are all, the ones that aren't millionaires are billionaires? Yeah. They're not going to be affected by this at all. We are.
That's it, Nick, that's it.
But we're wasting our breath, Chris, because nobody's paying the slightest bit of attention. They've got their fingers in their ears, and they're either humming wildly to themselves or making this noise. Just as long as they don't hear anything, factual or that makes sense. Thanks, Chris. 0345 6060 973. Nick says, I've just realised that I haven't got any milk to go with my cereal in the morning. Is George Soros behind this conspiracy? Yes, he is. He's a very evil man. Sean says, you should be the first president of the United States of Europe. I think king sounds better. How about emperor? This tweet says, got our country back. I don't see the French being less French, the Italians being less Italian, or the Germans being less German because they're in the EU. Some people are morons. Well, that's true. Most of them drive hatchbacks. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
I think there seems to be a moron problem with hatchback. Either morons buy hatchbacks or getting into the driving seat of a hatchback turns you into a moron. It's one or the other. They can't drive. Anybody that drives a hatchback should have their car crushed with them in it. Any questions?
No.
0345 6060 973. Acton. Hello, Theo.
Hey, how you doing, Nick?
Good, thanks. Yes.
I just thought I'd call in because I'm hearing a lot of arguments, that are pro-leave and stuff, and a lot of it doesn't have much substance. I'm an older millennial. I've run an IT recruitment firm in London, and I voted to remain. And I was a bit miffed after the vote because I think I read somewhere that one of the most searched for things on Google was what is the European Union after we, after we actually voted, which I felt a bit mad.
Well, now I read that too, and I wonder if that's one of those fake news stories. Because if that's actually true, then I don't think you need really to say any more than that.
No, of course. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, let's just say that we're going to go and do a skydive, right? And we jump out of an airplane. I think it's a good idea to put a parachute on before you jump out. Yeah. It feels at the moment that there is no parachute, and we're just sort of plummeting to the ground. And I'm failing to see any of the benefits of coming out of the EU. And obviously, as a small business owner that employs technical people within this country, there's a huge skills lapse across the marketplace. And I'd say that 80 to 90% of the people that I place in very technical jobs for some very established firms are actually non-British citizens. And they come over here and work very hard, and they've got the skills that we lack. So why would we shut the door on skills that we need?
Are they mostly from China, by the way?
There's a lot of Europeans, in all fairness, but then obviously there's a lot of other, nationalities as well. But I mean, it's not about where you come from. It's not about, like as I heard earlier, Polish people taking jobs. That's not the case. It's a case of if there's no skills or somebody has a good skill, doesn't matter where they come from or what creed, their colour they are. If they're the right person for the job and they've got the right skills, that they should get the job.
Right? No, I only ask about the Chinese because I read something which was kind of alarming, that even now, even with the artificial intelligence revolution about to overwhelm us, people in this country are making absolutely no plans whatsoever to... Let me see if I can find it. Hang on a minute. To actually do anything about it. And they asked chief executive officers of companies. It was... I don't have it. I'm surprised I've thrown that away. I didn't actually read that on the air. But it was something like they asked hundreds and hundreds of chief executive officers in companies all over the world what their plan was. The question was, do you think that artificial intelligence will be more revolutionary than the internet? Which seems obvious. I mean, I'm an ignoramus, but it seems obvious to me that it will be, because the internet is just an information revolution, whereas artificial intelligence is everything. And the people in Britain, the vast majority of CEOs in Britain, did not think that artificial intelligence was going to be a thing. A massive majority of the Chinese think that it will be. In other words, companies in China are pouring an enormous amount of money into artificial intelligence, and we're doing practically nothing at all.
No, well, I mean, a lot of people. I mean, just straying from the subject a little bit about this, a lot of people get annoyed about AI taking jobs and obviously automation that's coming across the marketplace at the moment. But I mean, it's a little bit like the biro coming along, If you stop the progress, we'll still be writing with a quill. It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a guy earlier that was complaining about a Polish guy taking his job in a factory. It's just like this is progress, and you can't stop it. And I don't think you can, you just need to adapt and move forward,
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people just can't. I mean, it's not really necessarily their particular fault. I mean, you get to a certain age and it's very difficult to learn new skills. I mean, and some people just don't have the capability to learn certain types of things. We all find our place in the world, and if your place is bashing bits of metal together or stacking shelves or whatever it might be, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But in the new world that's coming, those jobs won't exist anymore.
Yeah, and I also, just on one more point, I noticed that there's a lot of callers that I think maybe came from like the baby boom generation and stuff like that have kind of voted out and voted, to leave. And I think there's maybe quite a lot of people that maybe feel that this vote won't affect them and too much. Maybe because they've made their money and they've had the last 40 years of collating their wealth and whatever.
Paid off the mortgage.
People like me that are just starting out in life and just trying to make something for themselves. I mean, when I came to the market, it feels like it's 4 o'clock in the morning and all that's left is half a pint, and the baby boomers are taking everything,
Yeah.
And now, what they're going to do is close the door on us completely and vote us out of the EU. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks a lot to you, Theo. 0345 6060 973. It's just past 12:30. The news headlines in LBC with Andy Ivey.
The number of people confirmed dead after the...
What we got here is a failure to communicate.
Yeah, well, nobody listens to anybody else. That's part of communicating is listening. Absolutely nobody is listening to anybody else. And if they did, if they heard something that they didn't agree with, then they just assume that it's...
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Pro-Brexit inventor James Dyson will move his company headquarters from the UK to Singapore in the next few months, but denies the decision has anything to do with Brexit.
Yeah.
Dyson, which makes £400 hairdryers, but at least they come in purple.
Groovy.
Yeah. He said the decision was unrelated to Britain's exit from the EU. The company said Dyson's centre of gravity has shifted. Hey, the North Pole was shifting. Did anything happen about that? They said Asia represents its largest and fastest growing market of the world. Really? Well, can't they talk to Asia on the phone? Do they actually have to go there? James Dyson, of course, remains optimistic about Brexit. Well, that's nice. All the people that seem most optimistic about Brexit seem to be getting their passports out and going somewhere else.
Oh, fabulous.
In 2017, he said he was enormously optimistic about Brexit and described himself as a patriot. And he will patriotically check our progress from his rear-view mirror. And Dyson CEO Jim Rowan said an increasing majority of Dyson's customers and all our manufacturing operations are now in Asia. This shift has been occurring for some time and will quicken as Dyson brings its electric vehicle to market. Yeah, I'm glad he mentioned that, because almost 3 years ago, the UK government, as in you, gave Dyson a £16 million grant for electric vehicles battery research. Did you know that? That was the same year, by the way, that his company made £448 million in a 3-month period. Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and another thing. Last year, Singapore signed a free trade agreement with the EU, meaning that Dyson will have better access to the single market than he would have had from a post-Brexit UK. And James Dyson remains the director of Beeswax Dyson Farming, which is registered in the UK. And that company recorded net assets of £461.5 million for the year ending December 2017 from farming, investment property holdings and generation of renewable energy. Oh, and there's the small matter of an EU farm subsidy he gets of £1.6 million. What? Now, you might think he needs the money. But Dyson's revenue in 2018 was £4.4 billion, with profits of over £1 billion for the first time. And we gave the company £16 million grant for electric vehicles battery research and £1.6 million for EU farm subsidy. So we'll miss you, but not as much as we'll miss your money. Oh, and your advice on what's best for us.
Bye-bye.
So who's left of the ardent Brexiteers? You've got the billionaire American, who neither lives, works, nor pays taxes here. Then there's the billionaire industrialist who's upped sticks and gone to the low tax haven of Singapore. Then there's the billionaire industrialist who's upped sticks and gone to live in the low tax haven of Monaco. I mean, who's actually left that lives and pays taxes here? They've all abandoned ship for a luxurious yacht and sped off into the sunset while still insisting that they chart our course, that they determine the direction of the ship that they've left while we're going down. But the people responsible won't get wet. 034, but you know that's just Project Fear, even though it's happened already. 0345 6060 973. Nottinghamshire. Hello, Colin.
Hello, good evening to you.
Yes, sir.
I'm probably one of the very few people who seems to call in here who actually did a bit of research before I actually voted.
Oh, my God. We found one. We found one, everybody.
Yeah. And I actually looked into this to find out. And, I mean, I voted to remain. And one of the main reasons I voted to remain was freedom of movement. Not for me, but for my children. I wanted them to be able to, look for a job anywhere in Europe and be able to go and get it. And that's going to be removed from them in the next couple of months. They'll still be able to go and try and find a job there, but it's going to make it an awful lot harder for them to get it. And the second thing, which just seems to really, really get on my nerves, is all these people who call in, the people who voted out, is they keep whittling on about that 52% of the UK population voted us out. It didn't. The vote was just over 70%, which meant that about 23% of people didn't even bother voting. So it just gets on my nerves constantly when they keep going on about this. I think the only thing you could possibly do, which I know will never happen, would be a second vote, but make it compulsory for everybody to vote, and then we would actually have a definitive answer once and for all for this country.
I think that all votes of great importance, like national election, like general elections, and certainly this referendum, which should never be repeated, should be it should be compulsory voting. I mean, if they can do it in Australia, they can do it here.
Exactly. I mean, it's one thing I actually think that the Australians have got their heads screwed on about, that when it comes to votes of such importance, it's not a case of, I think I'll do it. If I can be bothered to get away from the TV, I might struggle down to the polling station. It is compulsory. You have to vote.
Yeah.
And I think for something that was this important, that it's going to be this life-changing, not just for us, but for future generations to come, it should have been compulsory. I mean, that 20 to 30% of people who didn't even bother getting out of their chairs, going down to they should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, yes, but but the reason that they in large part that they didn't is because it's the same reason that David Cameron posed the question in the first place, because he and they thought they were certain that we were going to stay in. I mean, you can remember the morning afterwards, the absolute stunned amazement when you woke up and realised what had happened, and the amount of calls I've had then up to this point with people saying, "Oh, well, I voted out, but I didn't mean it. I just wanted to register my complaint," or "I wish I had voted," or "Why didn't anybody tell me that the vote was on?" And on and on and on.
Yeah, I didn't vote because that was my protest.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just ridiculous. I mean, and people like that. As I say, the day after the vote, it was plainly obvious when you looked at the likes of Nigel Farage and his entourage. They were just as shocked as everybody else were, at which point it was like a kind of, oh God, what do we do now? And eventually they suddenly went silent and ran for the hills.
I think they ran for the Savoy, didn't they? Didn't they have a down-to-earth working man's celebration at the Savoy?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's a disgrace of this country at the moment that, one thing that the government that was allowed a vote of such importance to go ahead without people being fully informed.
It's worse than that, because they didn't really. I mean, this is the first election it really occurred. The manipulation of a population of an entire country by artificial intelligence means. I mean, the amount of both money and the value of the influence that was gifted to the Leave side is immeasurable. And this country was almost like a test case. And what happened here then was utilised to fashion victories elsewhere with you-know-who.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it was the programme I watched just over a week ago. I think it was on Channel 4, where I think it was about Brexit, where they showed you these companies they bought in, where they aimed at specific people and using keywords and things like that to target particular people. And
Well, that's the thing with the internet. It's the greatest tool of freedom that has ever been invented, but it is also, at the same time, in the wrong hands, the greatest tool of repression. And I think that this assertion that it was a fair and free democratic vote is completely incorrect. I mean, even now, despite the fact that we know all of the the various shenanigans that were occurring, people still refuse to believe that they were swayed in any way, as though advertising has no effect.
Oh, advertising has a massive effect on everybody. I mean, it's all the things that people do. I mean, if anybody who had actually got the smallest bit of intelligence would have, you take things at a pinch of salt. You do your own research. You look into it. You don't just go by one person or an advert on a social media site which says one thing. If it says something, you go and look into it. You do your research. You look at multiple sources.
But of course, there wasn't really. They didn't look like adverts, and they were tailored to individual people. It wasn't blanketing people saying, it'll wash your clothes a bluey white. It wasn't a blanket message like that. It was tailored individuals to individuals' personal beliefs and interests and prejudices and so on. And only those people saw those adverts. And so the rest of the country, the Remain side, the government, and everybody that should have had an eye on this had no idea that it was going on. Clueless.
Didn't have an idea it was going on, didn't have an idea it was even possible to some extent as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the first time that it had ever been tried on such a scale. We were a test case, and boy, was it successful.
Oh, God, yeah.
Colin, I've got to go, but thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Oh, by the way, I've done let me point you in the direction of my podcast again. I don't think, from memory, I don't think there's any Brexit in it at all. I can't swear that that's true, but trust me, it is funny. I think you'll find it a delight. And at the end, it's particularly good because I put some of my favourite calls from this show at the end. And boy, the two people who are put on the podcast that's just come out, they are absolutely shouting furious at me. I think you'll find it amusing. It's called the Nick Abbot Habit. It comes out once a week. There's a whole load of them up there. And the latest one is, I think it's called Boris Mansa Ho, which is not remotely as rude as it sounds. And you'll find it on the Global app and where they do podcasts. The Nick Abbot Habit.
Coming up at 1 on OVO.
Come on, we're running late!
Evan says, how many Brexiteers does it take to change a light bulb? Oh, no. Listening with material.
Oh, no.
How many Brexiteers does it take to change a light bulb? Nobody knows. They sit in the dark, screwing our country and blaming Polish people. Peter in Pontefract says, I suppose there's no chance that the bosses telling us that Brexit would be bad for Britain are the same ones who told us that the minimum wage would bankrupt companies. And you ask why we don't believe them. I don't know. Which ones are they? Or do you just... Because this is the same argument that I hear with scientists, like climate change or just anything. Oh, well, scientists got something wrong, So we don't believe in scientists anymore. We don't believe in science or numbers or facts or anything. Because somebody got something wrong once. Now, anything they say from now on is we disbelieve it. And I would understand that feeling if they also refused to believe in medical science. I mean, if when you went to hospital with your various oozings and insisted that you weren't treated with anything that medical science has come up with over the past 20 or 30 years, because a medical scientist once got something wrong, then I'll believe you. Then I will believe that you are behind your assertions. Other than that, fakers. Matt in Tokyo says, regarding the robot revolution, a whole bunch of robots have recently been fired at hotels here in Japan for being incompetent and irritating.
Correct.
At one hotel, they employed dinosaur robots who were quickly shown the door. Robot automation will come, but I'm not sure it'll be as quick in the customer-facing industries. A dinosaur robot in a hotel? What could possibly go wrong? Well, yes, absolutely. Well, some customer-facing industries. I mean, some call centres, of course, which seems to be the latest in the. I guess you could call them sort of sweatshop businesses. It used to be factories banging and clanging and crashing, and now it's the call centres. They're all going to get swept away very quickly. And I suppose you could call them customer-facing industries. I mean, you must have received robo-calls yourself. Well, just as your telephone can now understand what you're saying much better than it can 5 years ago, so those robots that are making telephone calls and you calling companies and it being answered by a robot, that's going to just become so smart that you won't actually know you're talking to a robot pretty soon. But yeah, that just seems willfully bizarre that a hotel would hire a dinosaur robot. Why would they do that? And I don't think that experience is an indication of what is coming. I think it's not nothing to do with me. We are told by people that are behind this forthcoming wave that essentially if you interact with a computer, the computer will start doing your job for you. And believe me, your boss can't wait to fire you. Cannot wait to fire you. I mean, imagine, robots are the absolute... apart from dinosaur robots that may eat the guests, apart from that, they're the perfect employees. They don't complain. They don't have sex with the junior. They don't ask for a pay rise or any money at all, in fact. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never sleep, never get anything wrong, apart from that eating the guests thing, apart from that. Clapham, hello, James.
Hi, Nick.
James.
Yes, Nick. Nick, I don't know what you're going to achieve by basically, having a go and, degrading the Brexiteers or Leavers by basically saying that they're thick, stupid, retarded.
Well, you put those words in my mouth, James. I never said any of those words. I never said they were thick. I never said they were stupid. I never said they were retarded. That's you saying that.
No, Nick, your callers have been saying this for the last past hour. Okay?
No, they haven't. That's just you. You've said that, not my callers. That's just you.
To go and change a light bulb. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that was somebody called. Somebody texted in a joke. Oh God, are you so thin-skinned you can't take a joke now?
No, you can't either, Nick. Nick, and by the way, to James Dyson, he paid £123.8 million worth of tax last year. He's moving to...
Oh, big deal. He made a... If that's true, what's that number again? How much? How much? Say it again.
Two people.
James, listen to me. Back up. How much tax did he pay? James.
123.8.
Right. Well, if that's true, then if that is true, big bloomin' deal. £123.8 million. He made a profit of £1 billion. That's 12%. How did he manage to pay 12% tax?
12% tax? Where are you getting this from? This is worldwide.
He made £1 billion in profit last year, James. You just told me he made he paid 123 million in tax. That's 12%.
Yes, in the United Kingdom coffers, yes, he did, yeah.
Well, that's 12%. How did he manage to do that?
You just can't. You can't deal with the fact.
How did he manage? If your assertion is correct, how did he manage to only pay 12% tax?
12% tax. You're actually thinking of £1 billion, aren't you? Not the actual total revenue, not the earnings before tax, the EBT.
Profit.
Don't know what his earnings.
£1 billion in profit.
Is earnings before tax, Nick?
Profit.
No, I'm on about his earnings before tax.
Profit is after tax.
Yes, but I'm talking about his editor.
You don't seem to get...
So what does he generate for the country?
He's moving his operation to Singapore.
He's moving two personnel to Singapore.
James, he's opening a factory to build electric cars in Singapore. He builds all of his products abroad.
3,998 people.
James, listen to me. Oh, yeah, it's pointless. Absolutely pointless. You see, when people say that, there's like that. Oh, he's only moving 2 people. Do me a favour. He's moving his headquarters. That entire business is run by 2 people. What are you talking about? And people say, oh, well, because their factory or their office still exists here, then no jobs will have been affected, even if they open an office and a factory elsewhere. Well, of course they have. Banks are doing this all the time. They may not fire people here, but they have changed their policy on who they hire in the future. By opening an office in Frankfurt or Amsterdam, as banks are serially doing now, financial industries of all stripe, upon which we depend, they have made the decision not to hire people here, but to hire them over there. So those jobs didn't exist here, so those people haven't actually been fired, but they would have existed here had they not, because of Brexit, opened elsewhere. How can you not see that? Well, you can't see it because it's willful blindness. Well, it's willful ignorance, really. You're determined not to understand what's happening. Simon says, thank God for having someone who speaks so much sense about Brexit. Well, not me, surely? Me? Hey, I got something right. Says, I hate the little England approach to the world as if we're back in an imperialist period where we can sail the seas and conquer whatever we do and wherever we go. The magical thinking that is Brexit will hurt the poor and the working class more than anybody else. It's pitiful. Well, yes, it will. And, you know, when I speak to people like that, there's a little bit of me, just a tiny bit, the nasty part of me that thinks, well, you know what? Let's bring it on and see how you do. And when their life does not improve because of it, when it in fact is made worse from it, I'm absolutely convinced that they will still refuse to admit that Brexit had any part of it. They'll probably say, well, it was Hillary Clinton's emails that did it, or something of that order. Why? Well, I don't know why I'm even bothering. I should have done the weather for 3 hours. Let me point you in the direction of my podcast again. It's called the Nick Abbot Habit, and you'll find it on the Global app and also wherever they do podcasts. Whatever happens, God, what's going to happen this week is just going to be mind-blowing, ain't it? But whatever does occur, we'll chew it up and spit it out on Friday at 10, eh? Make sure you download the LBC or Global Player app, and you can check back on this and any other programme of the last week on the catch-up button. If you stick around, Steve Allen will set you straight at 5 o'clock, but right now it's Matt Stadlen.
Thank you very much indeed, Nick. The Archbishop of